Chapter 13, The Deep Archive. Long before radio telescopes traced faint distortions beyond Jupiter, long before gravitational interferometers measured ripples in spacetime, human beings looked upward and recorded what they saw. They did not possess mathematics capable of describing curvature tensors. They did not speak of quantum vacuum energy. They did not calculate prime number intervals embedded in cosmic signals. But they watched. And they remembered. The first sky observers in southern Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians built cities more than 5,000 years ago. Uruk, Ur, Eridu, Nippur. Their survival depended on cycles, floods, droughts, planting seasons. And so they developed a disciplined relationship with the sky. The heavens were not abstract. They were practical. Celestial bodies became calendars. The rising of Venus signaled agricultural shifts. Lunar phases governed ritual timing. Constellations structured navigation across desert and marshland. From this practical need emerged something extraordinary: systematic astronomical recording. Clay tablets recovered from Mesopotamian ruins show lists of star positions, eclipse predictions, planetary movements. These were not casual observations. They were sustained across generations. The sky was being archived. The meaning of Anunnaki in Sumerian texts, the word Anunna or Anunnaki appears frequently. In academic translation, it refers to a group of deities associated with the heavens and the underworld, often described as the offspring of the sky godin. The term itself does not inherently mean extraterrestrial beings. It means those of princely seed or offspring of An was the sky. The sky was order. And order was survival. In mythological narratives such as the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh, these beings are depicted not as invaders but as administrators of cosmic structure. They assign roles. They establish boundaries. They define the architecture of existence. It is important to pause here. The texts are mythological. They are theological. They are not scientific documentation in the modern sense. But they reflect something profound: an early human attempt to describe large-scale order emerging from the heavens. The architecture of the cosmos. Sumerian cosmology was structured. The universe was divided into layered realms: the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. These were not merely spiritual spaces, they were organized systems governed by specific deities. Each celestial body had authority. The moon god Nanna, the sun god Utu, the planet Venus embodied in Inanna. These were not random mythic assignments. They reflected consistent astronomical behavior. Venus, with its predictable cycles of disappearance and reappearance, became associated with transformation and power. The moon, governing tides and fertility cycles, became a symbol of regulation. The Anunnaki, in this framework, functioned as a council, a governing assembly overseeing cosmic order. It is a political metaphor applied to the universe. But metaphors often encode observation. Numerical systems and pattern recognition. The Sumerians developed a base 60 numerical system, a structure that still influences how modern civilization measures time and angles. 60 minutes in an hour. 360 degrees in a circle. This mathematical inheritance is not mystical. It is evidence of advanced abstraction. But base 60 also enabled precise astronomical calculation. Planetary cycles could be tracked with increasing accuracy. Lunar eclipses could be predicted. Celestial repetition became predictable rather than chaotic. Order replaced fear. And yet, even as mathematical understanding advanced, mythic language persisted. The Anunnaki remain central to cosmological explanation. Why? Because knowledge and narrative do not exclude each other. They coexist. The memory of disturbance. Certain Sumerian and later Akkadian texts describe moments of cosmic disruption. Flood narratives. Darkened skies. Periods of celestial imbalance. Modern scholarship interprets many of these as mythologized accounts of natural disasters, river flooding, volcanic activity, meteor events. But what matters is not whether the events were literal in supernatural terms. What matters is that sky-based phenomena were integrated into collective memory. Convergence of interpretation. As Chapter 12 of our modern narrative described, a cosmic field embedding itself into the solar system, stabilizing curvature, aligning gravitational harmonics, humanity responded with mathematics and instrumentation. 5,000 years ago, the response would have been narrative. If a large-scale astronomical phenomenon subtly altered sky behavior, brightened a star, shifted a planetary rhythm, it would not have been described as space-time topology. It would have been described as divine council activity. This is not an assertion of equivalence. It is an observation about interpretive frameworks. Civilizations describe phenomena using the tools available to them. The long continuity. After Sumer came Akkad. After Akkad, Babylon. After Babylon, Assyria. Each inherited astronomical records. Each expanded them. The Babylonians refined eclipse prediction cycles known as the Saros cycle. They maintained star catalogues that would later influence Greek astronomy. There was continuity. A chain of sky observation stretching centuries. The Anunnaki evolved in textual emphasis over time, but celestial governance remained central to cosmology. The sky was structured. The sky was inhabited, conceptually. The sky was not empty. The discipline of distant modern scholarship approaches these texts with caution. Archaeologists and Assyriologists emphasize that Anunnaki myths reflect social order projected onto the cosmos. Kings ruled cities. Therefore gods ruled heavens. Hierarchical societies imagined hierarchical universes. This interpretation is valid. But it does not exclude another possibility, that mythic language may also encode the memory of recurring celestial regularities. Regularities that felt deliberate. Because they were stable. And stability, in an ancient world of unpredictability, was indistinguishable from intentional design. A shared impulse. The Horizon Initiative scientists, confronted with a 19-point lattice embedding itself into space-time, sought explanation through equations. The Sumerians, confronted with repeating sky cycles and catastrophic floods, sought explanation through narrative. Both responses arise from the same human impulse to impose coherence on the cosmos. To detect pattern. To preserve memory. The deep archive clay tablets survive where spoken language does not. Thousands have been excavated. Many remain untranslated. Many are fragmentary. They record grain inventories, legal disputes, marriage contracts, and sky movements. The archive is deep. It is patient. It is incomplete. Yet it reminds us that humanity has been watching the heavens far longer than radio telescopes have existed. If a subtle, long-duration astronomical anomaly had unfolded slowly over generations, barely perceptible but present, its traces might not appear as measurements. They might appear as myth. A cautious question. As the cosmic field continues its convergence in our present narrative, and as humanity prepares for full integration within a few remaining years, a question emerges. Not a claim. Not a conclusion. A question. Have civilizations before us interpreted extraordinary celestial order through the only language available to them? And if so, could fragments of that interpretation persist within the deep archive of Mesopotamia? The Anunnaki, in academic terms, remain mythological entities of Sumerian religion. But myth is not falsehood. It is memory structured through symbol. Chapter 13 does not assert that the anomaly and the Anunnaki are identical. It does something more restrained. It establishes continuity. Humanity has always responded to the sky. Sometimes with mathematics. Sometimes with narrative. Sometimes with reverence. The archive remains. The field continues to converge. And between ancient clay and modern instrumentation, the same question lingers quietly: what does it mean when the heavens appear ordered beyond expectation? The answer, as always, depends on the language available to describe it. And history reminds us that language evolves. Chapter 14, The Council of the Sky. As the gravitational field continued its slow convergence toward the inner solar system, scholars on Earth turned their attention more carefully to the structure of ancient cosmologies. Not to validate them. Not to romanticize them. but to examine them with disciplined distance. In Mesopotamian texts, the Anunnaki are rarely described as solitary figures. They appear collectively. They deliberate. They assign roles. They determine outcomes. They function as a council. This is not incidental language. It reflects a structured universe. The assembly model in Sumerian political life, governance often occurred through assemblies. City leaders did not rule entirely alone, councils of elders advised and legitimized decisions. When mythic narratives described the heavens, they used the same framework. The gods gathered. They debated. They issued decrees. The sky, in this worldview, was administrative. Modern readers may interpret this as anthropomorphic projection. And in many ways, it is. But the persistence of the council motif suggests something deeper than mere storytelling convenience. It reflects an attempt to describe distributed authority. Not a single force. A system. Celestial regularity as governance. The Sumerians did not possess gravitational equations. Yet they observed consistent regularity in planetary movement. The moon returned. Venus followed its cycle. Solar eclipses, though rare, obeyed pattern. Pattern implies structure. Structure implies oversight, at least in a pre-scientific interpretive framework. When something in the sky behaves consistently across generations, it acquires authority. In Mesopotamian thought, authority belonged to the divine assembly. Thus the Anunnaki were not random supernatural beings. They embodied predictable celestial forces organized into a coherent system. The hierarchy of realms. Sumerian cosmology divided existence into distinct but interconnected layers. An, the sky. Ki, the earth. Ker, the underworld. Between these realms, boundaries existed, but they were permeable. The Anunnaki traversed them. This concept is important. The cosmos was not static. It was interactive. Messages passed between layers. Decisions in one realm affected another. In a modern analogy, we might describe this as systemic coupling. Ancient language described it as divine communication. The language of descent. Several Mesopotamian myths describe divine descent. In the descent of Inanna, the goddess travels from the heavens to the underworld, crossing gates that remove her symbols of authority. While this narrative is theological and symbolic, it encodes a conceptual bridge between cosmic and terrestrial domains. The heavens were not isolated from Earth. They influenced it. Modern astronomy confirms that celestial forces shape planetary conditions. Solar radiation drives climate. Lunar gravity governs tides. Ancient societies recognized influence without understanding mechanism. They explained it through descent narratives. The star lists. One of the most significant achievements of Babylonian astronomy was the compilation of star catalogues such as the Mul.Apin tablets. These texts recorded heliacal risings, constellations, and planetary positions with notable precision. They reflect disciplined observation. The heavens were mapped not as mythic abstraction but as coordinate systems. And yet, even as technical detail increased, divine association remained. Each star cluster retained mythic identity. The council persisted. The system and the story coexisted. Stability and catastrophe. Mesopotamian records also describe periods of celestial irregularity. Eclipses were interpreted as omens. Comets were recorded with concern. Unusual planetary alignments triggered ritual response. When predictable order appeared disrupted, it required explanation. In political terms, disruption suggested dissent within the council. In natural terms, it suggested instability. In either case, anomaly demanded narrative integration. Human cognition seeks equilibrium. The modern parallel. As scientists in the Horizon Initiative model the 19-point lattice embedding into space-time, they use the language of field stability and harmonic resonance. They describe distributed curvature nodes interacting across gravitational gradients. The structure is collective. It is systemic. It operates without a single central point. If described through ancient metaphor, it might resemble a council of forces maintaining equilibrium. This does not imply equivalence. It highlights structural similarity in description. Interpretation and restraint. Academic scholars caution against retroactively projecting modern science into ancient myth. There is no direct textual evidence that the Anunnaki represented extraterrestrial visitors in the literal sense. The numbering of the heavens. Mesopotamian cosmology assigned symbolic numbers to deities and celestial bodies. The number 60 was associated with other gods carried numerical identities within a structured hierarchy. Numbers in ancient systems were not arbitrary. They reflected mathematical worldview. As modern physicists analyze the anomaly's 19-node lattice, they recognize that number selection in structured systems is rarely accidental. 19 may be mathematically optimal for curvature stability. 60 was mathematically optimal for astronomical division. Both reflect systemic design within available frameworks. One uses mythic language. One uses tensor calculus. Both rely on pattern recognition. The observer motif. Certain Mesopotamian texts emphasize that the gods observe human conduct. Observation establishes accountability. In scientific terms, observation collapses probability into measurement. The act of watching transforms potential into recorded fact. When Raj suggested that the cosmic field might be observing through interaction, he described a physical process. But the metaphor resonates. Ancient texts personified observation. Modern physics describes it mathematically. The underlying concept, interaction shaping outcome, remains consistent. Continuity across millennia. From clay tablets in Ur to interferometric arrays orbiting Jupiter, the human response to cosmic structure follows a recognizable arc: observation, pattern detection, narrative or equation. The tools evolve. The impulse does not. The emerging question as convergence continues and the solar system gradually integrates into the anomaly's expanding geometry, humanity faces a reflective moment. If a structured cosmic field can embed itself without violence, stabilizing rather than disrupting, then the concept of a governing sky is no longer purely mythic. It becomes a matter of physics. The council metaphor shifts from theology to topology. This does not validate ancient literalism. It reframes ancient intuition. A measured connection. We must remain cautious. Correlation is not confirmation. Similarity of structure does not imply identity of origin. Yet the intellectual exercise remains valuable. It reveals that human beings, across vast stretches of time, consistently interpret the heavens as ordered and participatory. 5,000 years ago, that order was narrated through divine assembly. Today, it is modeled through curvature harmonics. The language changes. The sky remains. As Chapter 14 closes, the field has embedded nodes within Mars' orbit. 3 years remain until projected full convergence. Humanity continues to refine its curvature technologies, increasingly capable of synchronized resonance. Meanwhile, the deep archive of Mesopotamia sits quietly in museum vaults and academic libraries. Clay tablets. Worn inscriptions. Records of a people who watched the sky and described it as structured, governed, attentive. Whether metaphor or memory, their language persists. And in the silent mathematics of an approaching cosmic field, the idea of a council in the heavens no longer feels entirely archaic. It feels, at minimum, structurally familiar. The convergence continues. And history watches alongside it.
Write your questions in the comments. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for upcoming episodes of the documentary series. New documentaries are released every Wednesday and Friday on this channel.